Ahoy hoy everybody, and welcome to another video in my series where I listen to classic albums for the first time. And today I am listening to The Velvet Underground and Nico. I've not really heard any Velvet Underground. I know covers of their work. Obviously Bowie covered them a few times, he was a big fan. Blind Melon covered Candy Says. I'm sort of aware of their legacy, but I never really... There's odd tracks I'm aware of, and I have heard, if you like, but I've never sat and listened to the Velvet Underground. This particular album, up until last year, was number 12 on Rolling Stone's 500 Greatest Albums list. It is now number 23. At the time of release, it was critical and commercial failure. Brian Eno famously said that in the first 5 years it was released, it only sold 30,000 copies, but everybody who bought one of those 30,000 copies formed a band. It's a very influential album. This copy is obviously a modern reissue, bought from a slice of vinyl for £20. Last year, might even have been the year before. I've had it a while now. I'm just adjusting my angle a bit. So this, it came in a sealed inside this bag. A little tear off section to access it. And it's got the bonus track Chelsea Girls. So it does have a replica of the Peel Slowly and See cover, designed by Andy Warhol. I won't take it all the way off. Here's the inside. It's on Vinyl Lovers. Polylined plain inner. So yeah, there's a couple of tracks on here that I'm interested to hear for various reasons, which I'll mention when I do the review. But I'm anticipating and enjoying this. Let's find out if I do. Right, where do we begin? Yeah, I'm going to leave my overall summing up until I sum up. Let's go through track by track first of all. So it opens with Sunday Morning, which is a track I knew. I've heard the song. I think I've probably sort of on film soundtracks and the like. I don't think I've ever heard it on the radio, but it's certainly a song I knew. It's a gentle poppy song. What surprised me throughout this album was quite how mainstream a lot of the songs are. What I did find is that when Lou Reed is singing in his higher register, his vocals are dangerously Dylan-esque for me. It just about is fine, but it could quite easily scrape into the nasal Dylan-esque noise that I do not like. Nice twinkly backing with this on the xylophone. Really nice song. Great start. Track 2 is I'm Waiting for the Man, which is a song I'm very familiar with through Bowie's covers of it. Not certain I've ever heard the original. Again, I may have done on film soundtracks. But it's got the relentless driving rhythm throughout it. Song about him waiting for his dealer to sell him heroin. Yeah, not much to say about this track because I was already so familiar with it, but great, another good, strong, great track. Track 3 is Femme Fatale, and this is the first of Nico's lead vocals. She sings backings on Sunday Morning, but I didn't really spot her, to be honest. But this is another gentle, poppy track. Nico's vocals aren't ever perfect, but that's sort of their charm, the Germanic what's the phrase I want? Just her accent and phrasing is slightly off at times, but as I say, that's really their charm. As I say, pretty pop song. It's got a slight Gallic feel that I liked. Another good, strong track. Track 4 is Venus in Furs, and again, this is one I know. Musically, it was the version I recognised, but I didn't really associate the vocals on this to the versions I know. So I'm not quite sure if I've heard a different mix of it or a cover that's very faithful to it. I'm not entirely sure, but it's certainly a song that I already knew. It's got the great Indian style backing, a simple but catchy melody. At times the viola tuning is pretty dodgy, but again, that's sort of its charm. Another great track. Track 5 is Run, Run, Run. And the first thing that came to mind was, I've written down, Quo. It's sort of got the chugging, bluesy boogie backing that Status Quo are so fond of, which is no bad thing. Vocally, Dylan was back a bit, but it's a simple song, nice catchy chorus. The guitar solo in it is terrible, but I like it. It's probably the weakest track so far, but it's still a track I enjoyed. Track 6 is Autumn Parties. It's a hypnotic track. The vocals on it are pretty terrible. The solos are pretty terrible. But it just works. There's something about it and it just works. Again, a track I really like. Now, this version screws around a bit. Certainly based on Wikipedia. And I think they've done this to fit Chelsea Girls on at the end. So, I'll Be Your Mirror, which should be halfway through the second side, they stuck at the end of side 1. It's another Nico, simple, poppy, nice song. Nice pretty guitar line on it. Nice melody. Vocals are better on this one than on the previous track. Yeah, I like it. It's just in the wrong place. Then track 2 opens with Heroine, and this is one I was interested to hear. I'm waiting for the man, because obviously I knew the Bowie version, and Bowie's version is pretty faithful to that. I was interested to hear Heroine because I've read a number of times Prince's song The Cross compared to Heroine by Velvet Underground, and I can sort of see it. I mean, I can see it. Basically, The Cross is a simple 2-chord A&E repeated ad infinitum, and this is pretty much the same. I think it's A&E as well. I might be wrong there, but it's just those 2 chords. Where it differs is with Heroine, it's slow at the start and then it builds up and builds up and then it goes slow again and then it builds up and builds up. Repeat ad infinitum throughout the song. With The Cross, the first half of it is slow and then it rocks out in the second half, basically. So that's where it differs. And Prince is singing about God and they're singing about heroin. It is, and as it is meant to be a hypnotic song, the way it keeps speeding up and then slowing down and then speeding up and then slowing down. There's a section of the melody towards the end of each vocal section that I can tell is the bit that Bowie stole for Queen Bitch. He was hugely influenced by for Queen Bitch. There's very similar vocal melody there. Towards the end of the song, the instruments become more chaotic as well, which sort of fits the theme of the song. Yeah, it's a really strong track. Track 9 was There She Goes Again, and all I've written down for this is that it's a traditional 60s pop song. As I said earlier, it's just, I was surprised quite how many of these traditional 60s pop songs are on this album. I was expecting a lot more noise and chaos and rock and innovation, really. And while that does feature on the album, I was expecting it sort of, on every track pretty much. So at this point, I'll Be Your Mirror should be on there, which would give this side its only Nico vocal. However, this goes straight to the Black Angel's Death song. The track I struggled with most on the album, it's tuneless viola throughout it. Vocally, it just gave me a Dylan vibe. Not the actual sound of his voice in this case, but just the phrasing and the melody just struck me mid-60s Dylan. I mean, I'm far from an expert there, but that's what it came to mind with it. What this sort of led me to realise is that the album I own that is sort of most like this album is Vitalogy by Pearl Jam, in that it's got the simple pop songs like Better Man on Pearl Jam's album. It's got the solid rock tracks, like, or even not necessarily solid rock tracks, but the rockier tracks like Spin My Black Circles, but then it's got the weirder, more experimental tracks. And what this reminded me of was Hey Foxy Mop Handle Mama It's Me. And that's what it reminded me of that. And I thought, actually, the whole album sort of fits that pattern. So I think Pearl Jam were rather influenced by this album when recording Vitalogy. And then the album ends, in theory, with European Sun. It's got a driving rhythm to start with. The vocal is pretty much spoken, sort of sung towards the end of each section. But then there's this noise, is all I can describe it. It's just a sort of a static-y type noise. And then it just goes into a chaotic instrumental bit. Sometimes the guitar sounds a bit hillbilly, but otherwise there's no sort of recognisable style to the music. It is just chaotic noise, and it goes on far too long. It's a nearly 8-minute track, and probably 6 minutes of it at least are this chaos. And whilst, after about 3 minutes, I was thinking, yeah, all right. But then it just kept going and going and going, and I thought, no, I've had enough of this now. So that sort of ended the proper album on a bit of a downer. Sort of the last 2 tracks wasn't mad on. But then this version sort of throws in a bit of a curveball in that it's put on Chelsea Girls, which is not a Velvet Underground track. It's a Nico track from Nico's Chelsea Girl album. It's written by Lou Reed and Sterling Morrison, and they play guitar on it, but it is not a Velvet Underground track. That said, I love this track. Absolutely loved it. It makes me want to buy Nico's Chelsea Girl album. But it shouldn't be on here. Well, it shouldn't be on here. That's what I should say. So I'll ignore that, and I'll try and imagine I'll Be Your Mirror in the right place, and say, although there were bits of this, particularly the last couple of tracks, that I wasn't mad on, I think they're tracks that might grow on me. Certainly the Black Angel's Death song I think might grow on me. I think I'll always think that end bit of the last track, which European Sun. I always think that last bit of European Sun will just go on too long. It's sort of a bit, it's Revolution number 9 for me. I can listen to it, but I'd wish it was half the length, and would be quite happy if the album didn't have it on full stop. But yeah, overall, enjoyed this album a lot. As I've said twice, it sort of surprised me quite how mainstream it was in parts. It's throughout, by and large, again, the musicianship isn't great. There's some really bad musicianship throughout the album. Vocally, it's not great. There's some really bad vocals throughout the album. But that's all part of its charm. It does make me want to get the other Velvet Underground albums. So I will keep an eye out for them and get them. Very interesting listen. As I said, by and large, enjoyed it. Really glad I've heard it. Really glad I own it. So that's it. That is my first listen to the Velvet Underground and Nico. So I need your recommendations for classic albums. These are albums on classic albums lists that you think I need to hear. Drop me a line, either email, Twitter, Instagram, in the comments down below. I will respond to any of them. I don't just want your favourite album, unless your favourite album happens to be on classic albums lists. If I've already heard the album, fair enough, I'll just say thanks, already heard it, isn't it a great album or whatever. But if I haven't, I'll stick it on my list. When I find it, I'll buy it and do one of these, basically. Okay, thank you for watching. Like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in another video. Thanks, bye.